We made it to February, Midlife Mavens. There's all this love in the air in February with Valentine's Day, but this year, I'm encouraging you to turn that love inward. How can you make this month one of self-care and self-love? I've got a few ideas for you, one of which is jumping into the Wild Women by Design retreat, of course. If you are ready to be part of an incredible group of wild women prioritizing themselves, then book your spot today. Imagine how different you will feel when you have Costa Rica to look forward to in late winter. And another self-care idea I have for you involves today's guest on the Midlife by Design pod. I'm talking to Kira Krier today, who has been a licensed clinical social worker in Burlington, Vermont for the last 25 years. She's also a certified EMDR therapist, a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor, and co-owner of Williston Hot Yoga, along with her husband Heath. She's also a quantum hypnosis healing technique practitioner, and most recently became the owner of Tight Club in Williston, a holistic body sculpting business that incorporates red light therapy, vibration plate therapy, cryostimulation, and facial compression technique that combines lymphatic drainage with fascia release. So, can you tell what her type is in human design? Yes, of course. If you guessed manifesting generator, you are indeed correct. So, we're going to talk with Kira today on Midlife by Design, and I'm your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and midlife coach, here to help you use human design to shed others' expectations and be who you came here to be. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today, I have with me Kira Krier, and I am so excited to introduce you to her because she is just an amazing, amazing human. My 6'2" manifesting generator friend. And we are going to talk about this new venture that she has and some keys to wellness, women's wellness, perimenopause wellness, and so much more. So welcome, Kira. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I am a clinical social worker by trade and education for 25 years. And at the heart of everything, I am a social worker. I'm a healer. And I also am a manifesting generator. And I'm so glad that I have that language now to describe myself because that's so helpful. I am a mom of 2 beautiful kids and an entrepreneur. I own 3 businesses and one that I hope we talk about a little bit today. And I'm a professor and I love all the different things that I'm doing.
So good. Such a classic and beautifully aligned life of a manifesting generator with so many different balls in the air, as long as each one of those is still lighting you up, which you just said. You love all of the things that you do. So I'm so glad that you're here today. So the first question I have for you is actually about Tight Club, which is the name of this new venture. And can you tell us how Tight Club came to be, how you got involved, and, what is it?
Yeah, it's kind of a wild adventure of how I got here, right? I was a clinical social worker and worked specifically in the human trafficking field for the past 15 years. And last December really felt like, I need a change. I was losing hope a little bit in humanity and feeling that and recognizing the signs of that, both being pointed out by friends, but also recognizing that it was coming to a time that I needed to end that. And I have a dear friend who is in Idaho, and we've done multiple projects together in the mental health field. And she said, I really think you're going to love this next project I'm doing. Come out to Idaho and see what I'm doing. And I'm combining a bunch of different healing modalities into one. And I'd love for you to check it out and maybe join in. So that's how it came. I flew out to Idaho. As soon as I landed in Idaho, I just knew right away, like my higher self just was like, you're saying yes, like right away. You're saying yes without even really knowing what was going to happen. So, and I'm a person who always listens to that intuitive higher self when it speaks loudly. And so Tight Club is a holistic sculpting, body sculpting adventure. And that's really, I had one treatment with her and another friend, and then a deep conversation about the change in my life and what I was seeking to still heal people, but just in a different way. So instead of being a therapist or, working in the human trafficking field, I wanted to heal people in a different way, almost like bringing all the different pieces of myself into the next thing, like what was the next thing. And this really tied it all together. This was something where I am able to work with the body, but also really able to work with people's minds and the emotions, because we store things in our body. And it lies. Often we use this term in the social work of the issues are in our tissues. Well, the tissues are actually our fascia. And this Tight Club, we work with the fascia. So there are a few different components to Tight Club. You start each session off with red light therapy and a vibrational plate, which activates the lymphatic system, which is really what we all want because the toxins are there in our lymphatic system. And because of the chemicals in our food, the water, even the air that we're breathing, those toxins are dangerous for our bodies. So those are the first steps, is red light therapy, vibrational plate. And then you move to the table and you receive cryotherapy, which more and more studies are coming out about the benefits of cryotherapy. This is localized cryotherapy, so no dunking in tanks or jumping in lakes, although the same health benefits, right? That when we freeze, localize one specific part of your body, the blood slows down, that vasoconstriction happens. And then when it warms up, the flow comes back 4 times faster, healing the body, relieving it of inflammation.
Okay.
And also, bonus, killing off fat blood cells. So the white fat cells are the things that we want to get rid of. Brown fat cells are the cells that we want to keep in our body because that helps with our metabolism and activate our metabolism. So from cryotherapy, so you can do some sculpting, you can tighten up skin with cryotherapy, you can, help with pain and inflammation. And from there, we move into doing some fascia work and lymphatic massage, drainage pieces. So we work with special tools for both of those. And it's really working the body in the ways that it can drain anything that so if we reduce the inflammation has to go somewhere. So we need to drain it to a place, just like if we're killing fat cells off, we need it to go somewhere. Otherwise, it's just sitting in our bodies, right? Tight Club is a combination of doing all of those things, whether you want to tighten up your abs for a holiday, vacation, or something like that, but also the benefit of lymphatic drainage, which is healing our bodies and making it possible. The inflammation goes down that so many of us are, if you're going into perimenopause or menopause, you're having maybe some inflammation, some bloating. This is the treatment for it.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. No, that was great. And it gives me such a better idea of the anatomy of a session. And I don't think I realized that there was so much packed into this one session that is incredible. So I want to circle back to the inflammation component because you mentioned it a couple of times and the lymphatic system. And one question I have for you is sort of about the mechanics of how it works. So you said like you need to get rid of all of that, at the end of the session. Do you expel it through like sweat, through, going pee, through, what are the ways is that what you mean? That's how it all like eventually comes out?
Yeah, exactly. So, 70% of our lymphatic system is in that digestive area. So in that gut health area, right? So 70%, that's a lot, right? So we're moving it to those places. And then, yes, the only job for people after Tight Club, after a session, is to drink water so that it can come out through urine. It can even, for some people, it can be intense on their system. So they might have different bowel symptoms, those things. That's the way that it drains out. Just recently, I had someone who said, the first 2 days of my cycle, I felt like everything was dropping out of me, like all the toxins, because I had done a treatment just 2 days before her cycle. So I think any way to drain it, but the job is people need to drink water afterwards. It's so important to hydrate our bodies, to flush, and then sweat right after, right? Within 24 hours to sweat out the rest of what might be sitting in your body.
Okay, so like they could go exercise or hit the sauna or whatever. Okay, got it. And then my second question is coming back to the idea of inflammation. I feel like the anti-inflammatory diets have been pushed a lot. I know when I went to see my naturopath, that was one thing that we talked about, in talking about inflammation. So I'm curious from your perspective, why is inflammation and our lymphatic system such an important consideration for women's health as we come into midlife?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that I've been keenly aware of over the years is how breast cancer has risen in our society. And the lymphatic drainage point underneath our arms is what many people know this, but if you don't, that's the lymph area that gets infected with cancer. Most of us have cancer cells within our body. The studies show that we have that, and then it's activated by toxins or family history or those types of things. But for me, coming from a family of women who have had breast cancer, both grandmothers of mine, maternal and paternal, and my mom have had breast cancer. So any kind of drainage in those areas to prevent toxins from building and breast cancer is really why it's become so important. When we build up, there's fluid here, so there's lymph drainage here. Most people have heard of the gua sha, you're moving that, right? So a lot of times with gua sha, people are moving up to add plumpness. You actually should drain down first, y'all. Drain it down first, toxins out, and then up to plump. But why we need that drainage is so that the inflammation doesn't occur. Some inflammation happens more and more, especially in that gut area during menopause. And that's because our estrogen levels are dropping, testosterone levels are rising, and it creates that bloat sensation. If we clear or help the lymphatic system to work the way that it's intended to, then everything can flow a little bit easier. I will have to say, for myself, why Tight Club is because it changed my life. I think I sent you a picture of myself that in May, I just felt like I was blowing up. And the doctors were just saying it's perimenopause. That should not be a reason. That should not be a reason that we don't feel good. And so the vibrational plate, red light therapy, and lymphatic drainage changed my life. I've lost 20 pounds since May just by doing these treatments on myself, and also doing some weightlifting and exercising. I own a yoga studio, so I'm in there too. So I have all these other things. But the main thing that I changed was really working on how do I drain these parts of ourselves and we can all do these things at home to help our bodies get rid of the toxins, right? Whether that's, wine and sugar or something like that, or if it's just you wanted a bagel and you blew up, brush it out, right? Pull it out of your system.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know Kira, she has been teaching yoga for years. Like she said, owns a yoga studio. So by no means could you say that she was out of shape. You, I think, were such a healthy human before. However, we've had conversations about still being quote unquote healthy, but feeling like shit, right? Still. You still feel like hell. And so what you have to get curious about what else might be going on. And so I love this approach to using these other tools to get down to what's actually causing that inflammation and deal with it. So I'm sure some of our listeners are not completely aware of some of the tools that you've mentioned. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the 4 main healing modalities that you use at Tight Club and how they're really supportive.
Okay. Feel free to cut me off because I get so excited about the research thing, but
love it.
I'll start with red light therapy because PubMed just released another study on the benefits of red light therapy for stroke survivors. And it specifically, I'll just quote this little piece of it because my father, who has passed away, but he did have a stroke. He did pass away from the stroke. But so any kind of stroke stuff is very interesting to me of why is it happening more and more? How does it impact? What's the healing? So the new study that came out that if someone is placed under red light therapy within 18 hours of the stroke, it will reverse 100% of the symptoms, 100% of the symptoms of the stroke.
Ow.
So that is mind-blowing. So a lot of the research that comes out for red light therapy, vibrational therapy, cryo comes from the UK. They're very innovative on how to work with the system. We know that that's the difference with our healthcare system, that we tend to look to a pill where they're looking for modalities. So red light therapy increases the mitochondria in our body. If you don't understand what the mitochondria are, then, because me neither, I should have paid attention.
Powerhouse. I remember specifically from 7th and 8th grade. It's the powerhouse in our cell, right?
We all forget that piece of science was so important, but it's the powerhouse of our bodies, right? So it increases the flow of that. Now, it has other holistic aesthetic pieces to it as well. It produces collagen. So collagen is an amino acid in our body. We have many different amino acids that start to dip around 35. They kind of crash and burn. So red light therapy helps increase the mitochondria, but also all those other amino acids that start to dip and die after that 35. It helps with scar tissue. It helps with healing after surgeries. They're using it in Denmark for one of their healing rooms after surgery is actually wheeling someone into a red light room. Think about the difference here. Here, we're wheeling people into fluorescent lighting, which we know is bad for us. Denmark, going into a fully red light room to heal the body. So from there, the vibrational plate, it was designed by, I always forget his last name because it's very German, but his name is Dr. Steven. He was an exercise physiologist for the elderly. And what he found was that everybody was decreasing in their mobility over the age of 65, and he was really concerned about it. Their resting metabolic rates were dropping at an alarming speed. So he wanted to create something that would help increase the resting metabolic rate and help exercise the body at the same time. His beginning studies were done in nursing homes where he would wheel people up to the vibrational plate and just place their feet on it. That's it, just their feet. And within 90 days, 84% of those people had more mobility than when they began the study, because it increases our metabolic rate. So metabolic rate so some people think about that as your metabolism, but it's also so much more than our metabolism. It's our brain functioning, our cognitive functioning, it's Alzheimer's, like all of those things. So this little tiny thing.
So shake plate could potentially help with like menopausal brain fog.
Yes, brain fog, the red light therapy at the same time, you're shaking it up, you're moving the lymphatic system to drain. It's shaking, it's not just like a fun shake, right? It can be intense too, right? It can be intense.
Just trying to get a visual, like how big is the plate? Is it sort of like standing on a scale, like that type of thing, or?
It's larger than a scale. So think about it about larger than a scale, like your
wide.
Had someone who is over 200 pounds on it. So it's a big enough thing to sustain that type of weight. It
Mhm.
literally jiggles you from the inside out. Now, you back to that trauma we stored in our body. How do we relieve trauma in our body? It's by shaking. We know that from watching dogs shake after a traumatic event. Here we are shaking the whole body up, which we know releases the trauma that's stuck in our body, prepping it, right? All of the science is there. And then you move into the cryotherapy, which is using that thermal shock to the system.
Okay.
Thermal shock increases the dopamine and serotonin levels, which everybody who's going through perimenopause needs. Right? Like we're taking that dive. Maybe you have those flashes of like anger and you don't even know why, or that edginess, right? Cryotherapy, when you freeze any part of your body, this is why cold plunges are all the rage, because this is what it does. It slows everything down. The body, the vagus nerve, sends a response and says, uh-oh, panic, panic. Then it's shut off because you're exiting the water or you're stopping the thermal shock, and the blood and the vagus nerve flood the brain with serotonin and dopamine. That benefit lasts 3 to 5 days. It's like, oh, I feel good after one session. You're like, for 3 full days, your whole body feeling like, wow, I feel good. Right? Like, I feel good here. Right? And so that's really the science behind those things, like decreasing the inflammation, using it for sports injuries, on the sidelines, freezing things up, that because it takes the swelling right down. Like it immediately just draws out the inflammation that is just killing it right away.
Wow. So, I just broke my wrist. And as a question for anybody out there who has had a recent injury, is there a time period in which you want to get in to do this type of thing? Is there any time that is too soon, or what would you recommend following an injury?
I think, mostly when it's a big injury like yours has been, is checking with the doctor. Right. Of what do they recommend in terms of inflammation? Like what is going to, maybe hurt it or harm it. But I've seen people with sprained ankles, locked up quad, a tennis player who was about to go into a match over the summer, had a locked up back, just froze that one area, used some red light therapy onto that and did some fascia blasting, and he was good to go. I say that if you're feeling pain, that this is the thing. I think I had mentioned to you, I have a grade 2 tear in my shoulder. I froze it 4 times, had full mobility, been able to do push-ups again, chaturangas, just like. So I think when it's a serious injury, it's, checking in with your doctor. When it's something else, when I've worked with people who have plantar fasciitis and, there's no limitations for that. And sprains, those types of things, that cooling is actually decreasing the inflammation. So it's actually good for the body. It helps progress the healing even faster.
Yeah. Gotcha. What kinds of offerings do you have at Tight Club? Is it just single sessions like this, or can you describe a little bit about how do people sign up to get this sort of thing?
Yeah. So sign up for a consultation first so that you could hear all the information, the science. I can load you up with what to expect, right? Because there's an aesthetic piece to it, but there's really a healing piece. So things can come up, emotions can come up, thoughts, feelings, all of those things. So, it's a commitment to your body wellness, and people do have to be prepared for that. And then we do suggest 6 to 12 sessions, depending on what you're dealing with, right? And our packages are all based on famous people from way back. So Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, Ava, and that's based on body parts. Like if you want to work on the arms, you're going to have this. If you want to work on the abdomen and your hips, then you're having the Marilyn. But each one of those focuses on the lymphatic massage and drainage every time you come. Like it doesn't matter which part of your body you're working on. Like if you're looking aesthetically to have different arms, or if you have shoulder pain and that's why you're coming, then you might be doing the Ava, and then you're also getting the lymphatic drainage. So you're looking at really committing to those 6 weeks. Each session is 75 minutes. So every session that you come to, and again, it's a holistic, like we're dealing with everything that comes out. Things come out on the table, right? Because you're releasing and you're getting into the parts of the body that might hold emotion and things. So that's my suggestion is come in, in the consultation, we do a mini treatment. So you get everything, you get all this kind of feedback around what to expect, but also you get a mini treatment so you know how your body's going to respond, how it felt for you, and then you can make an educated decision for yourself about, what do I want to work on for myself? And I usually help people along, like, if you, are thinking you really want to work on your abdomen, let's do this.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I think that part of what is so beautiful about you specifically doing this type of work is your background and being able to serve those people with all of the emotions that are coming up. One of my other questions was about support in between sessions. Do you offer support in between sessions, or is it more like you have the session, you process what's going on during it, and then you send off clients with sort of their own homework, or maybe a combination? I'm curious.
Yeah. So we process. So we do end every session with, I use the word shavasana, which is rest and relax time at 2 full minutes so that the body can integrate. And then I come back into the room. And at that point, we process, like, what did you feel? What did you notice in your body? And so there's some time to actually talk about what did you know, what came up. And then from there, it's really, I really go for the empowerment model, which is like, I empower you to take, whatever you just had charge of your life and use that in your own healing for the next week. I've had 1 or 2 people reach out in between to just say, like, woo, I moved a lot of stuff this week. And I'm like, I did, because I can feel it too. You can feel. And that's another thing is I really try to show people, like, I can feel this. Can you? To make that connection with their mind and body, right? So if I'm moving this and you're thinking about your stepfather, your alcoholic stepfather, I want you to think about that spot at the same time that we're moving it through so that it can truly release from your body.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I think, talk therapy can be a great way to work through trauma, but the issues are in the tissues, right? That having some sort of component where you're working within the body to help release that is so helpful. And I just want to loop in your human design here because you are a 6-2 as well. And that 6 line is very much about role model energy and kind of this next level of spirituality it can be. And so I think you've done such a beautiful job of bringing in the mind, body, soul connection into your work here. So I'm curious if any thoughts are coming to mind, or if you want to expand on that or speak to that at all, and how it's tying into the work that you've done in the past.
Yeah, I would say just having the language of manifestor generator changed my life. Because lots of times people will say to you that almost like there's something wrong with you, like, oh, you have a lot going on, or you're doing a lot. And it feels like criticism, right? Like for me, it felt like criticism. And then I was feeling like I had to make an excuse of like, well, that's my ADD brain or my ADHD brain. And I don't, since our session, I don't use the ADD brain phrase anymore. I say, I'm a manifestor generator. Like, this is what works for me.
Absolutely.
Because it felt like criticism. And now it feels like I am able to understand, like, this is who I was designed to be. This is who I am. And I live in joy because of that. Where before it felt like, oh, you're not taking care of yourself. You're doing so much. No, I do so much and I take care of myself. It's a fascinating thing, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm able to do that. And so I just want to mention that because that truly was life-changing for me. Of not having to, I really respond to people differently. I'm like, this is who I am. Yes, this mind-body connection has always been huge for me. Part of my journey through working with human trafficking survivors was that feeling that I wasn't helping because EMDR therapist, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, it's fabulous. Fabulous. And also, when it's stuck in your body, it was like I was getting roadblocked of like, why am I seeing generations of trauma here, right? Generations of women coming into the prison, their moms, their cousins, their grandparents, all in prison together with the same trauma history. So this was really this Tight Club has given me a space to bring in all of that knowledge of understanding who we are and the neurobiology of trauma and the years of experiencing and wondering like, why couldn't I get that piece out of that person or help that person more? And this feels like all of my tools are able to be used. Where almost because of that feedback that I was getting, I was fighting using all the tools because, there's something wrong with me. Or, sometimes rest and relax for a manifestor generator doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what's the next thing that I'm going to do, right?
That is true. Yeah. Go ahead.
So now it just feels like, no, this is what I'm doing and this is exciting. And how can I inspire other people to really connect with their higher consciousness? Because we all have access to it. We quiet it down or we push it down because other people tell us certain things. And this is, an opportunity to really have it come forth and really have a voice to it.
That's so great. And thank you so much for sharing your experience of learning about the manifesting generator, because it's a great example of the permission that it gives us to just be who, this is the design that we came here with and we chose it for a reason. And you are such a great example of the lived experience of a manifesting generator who is doing it in a way that feels aligned. Every ball in the air feels like a good thing. And you are able to keep your energy going, both because it feels like a good thing and also because of the structures, I think, of the different offerings, right? You have kind of your healing built in, which is, I imagine, restorative for you and supportive. So yeah, really, really wonderful. Okay, so can you tell us where people can find you, how people can come work with you, and if they don't happen to be local to Vermont, is there any other way that they can connect with you to work with you, because you do have other modalities?
Yes. So I'm located in Williston, Vermont, and you can find us on the Tight Club, thetight.club. And we have there's 4 of us all together. So there's 4 locations. One, I'm the only one on the East Coast. And then there's one in Idaho, in Sandpoint, Idaho, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. So those are the locations right now. And shortly we'll have one in Kona. And another one in Iowa is opening up. So we're growing, which is great. Still no East Coast people, but I'm hoping that comes along shortly. So you can find us at thetight.club. And I own the studio, Williston Hot Yoga, and I would love to see people there. We offer the 26-2 Bikram method and Inferno Hot Pilates, which is all the jam right now because it has strength training.
Right.
I need right now as the strength training. And I also do quantum healing. So quantum hypnosis, I do have a website for that. It's called The Healing Power of Now. And quantum hypnosis is a it's a commitment. It's 4 to 6 hours of sitting with someone and exploring your higher consciousness and life purpose. It's a really magical thing that I've added to my repertoire of offerings. And I just love that. So I just thought of something that I really want to share also that you gave my husband and I, as I mentioned, Williston Hot Yoga. So Lori, you did a design map for us with the business and gave us some tips on what to watch out for. And we're going into our third year of business. And just about 3 months ago, one of the things that you mentioned actually came up. And I remembered she told me that this was going to happen and I needed to react differently to it. So I went back to my notes and it was about something around, when my husband was doing something for the business to allow him to do that and not to step in and take over, which is we hadn't gotten that dynamic at all until about 3 months ago where something needed to be done. I wanted to just get it done. And I remembered that you had said that and I went back and I didn't do it. And I think about that so often because instead of stealing from him his own power, I sat with the uncomfortability and allowed it to take place on his timeline.
Wow.
And that was, I'm going to get choked up about it. It was just beautiful because it avoided a fight, right? It avoided conflict in the business and it just rolled. I had it all going on in myself.
Right.
It never came out. Like it was all a very personal, like, oh, this is what she was talking about. Yeah.
Wow.
I just wanted to share that for business owners, maybe going in with partners, to like have it done because it really helped us going into our third year. Like in the beginning, it just runs smoothly. But as time goes on, I think you do come into some of those roadblocks or things, so just very helpful. I wanted to add that in.
Aw, thank you, Kira. That is so good to hear. I'm just so happy that something that I offer can be of help. And even so far in, the distance, like we did that a while ago. So yeah, I'm so glad that you went back and looked at your notes and congratulations to you for having the strength to like hold yourself where you knew it would be for the betterment of the two of you and for the business. I think it can be tricky going into business with your partner. It can be really wonderful, and it can also be some extra kind of layers of navigating. So congrats to you. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And I will drop all of those links in the show notes so people can find you. And yeah, just so appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into Midlife by Design today. I really am encouraging you to lean into self-care this month in February. And as much as you are keeping up with what's going on outside of you, also encouraging you to stay grounded, really trust in yourself and your inner authority, and let it guide you to the things that will be most nourishing for you. Of course, I will drop the link in the show notes for you to connect with Kira if you feel called. She is such a beautiful human and I'm sure can help you in your healing journey. And you'll also find the links for Wild Women by Design, where we would love to welcome you on this retreat. It is shaping up to be an incredibly transformative experience. And that's one thing about retreats is it can be hard to quantify the payback that you get with an investment like a retreat, because the connections that you make with other women while on retreat and in the location, in this case, in the jungle, are really hard to quantify. They're really hard to understand on this side when you're considering booking it, what you may actually get out of it. And so I'm encouraging you to truly lean into your authority. And if you are listening to this pod and you continually hear this call and it's tugging at something within you, then that is a very clear sign to take action. So we have begun our support sessions and we'll be running those up until we leave for the retreat. Everything is being recorded, so you have access to all of those. And we will also be supporting you after we return back from the retreat. I just wanted to mention that because it's not too late to join. You can still be a part of this incredible experience. So the link is in the show notes. And as we close, I am sending you so much strength to release what no longer serves you. I am sending you copious amounts of joy to fill your days and true clarity to fully be who you came here to be.